about the Chicago Project.
Yeah, and the Chicago Project is folks from a suburban school, kind of a suburban rural high school in outside of Dayton, Ohio, who come each year to the Chicago's Lawndale neighborhood to sort of learn about issues of race and poverty. And we have with us in the studio Reverend Nelson, who's from the North Lawndale area. We have George O'Hare on the line, who is 81 years old, and I guess originally from North Lawndale.
And a dedicated volunteer.
And now a dedicated volunteer. And the high school teacher who created the Chicago Project, John Wilson, who's on the phone from outside of Dayton, Ohio. So Reverend Nelson, I wanted to ask, do you at all feel transformed by this? Have you ever gone out to Ohio and talked to folks? He's rolling his eyes a little bit.
Right. What have you learned new about yourself, even maybe?
Well, it's an interesting question because transformation is one of the things that I've long rejected. When I went to seminary, one of the major points of seminary is that you should have this transformating event in your life, and that your life should be forever changed. And I walked into school, McCormick, and refusing to be transformed. 4 years later, I am transformed. I don't think that anyone intends to transform their life. I think the events of life make you change. And so consequently, I am changed because of the children, because of John's relationship, because of John and George's involvement in my life. I do look at life a little bit differently. And the vote is still out on whether I like it or not.
So you're not a convert even 10 years into this.
Well, no, I'm convinced that John is doing good. I'm not convinced that it's good for me.
Okay.
It sometimes takes the edge off of my anger, and I look at these children and I begin to understand that life will be better for them. And it's sort of a Jonah complex. I don't know if I want to preach repentance to people and have them transformed, then their lives be better. Sometimes I think I want some folks to suffer some of the indignities that I've suffered.
Wow. Well, that's definitely keeping it real talk.
There you go.
So
let's go on a little bit with that. Reverend Nelson, where does that come from?
Well,
I mean, in your own personal experience.
Well, I guess it comes from the fact that when you're raised in Chicago and you grow up in a system of racism and oppression that you can't change, and you begin to think it's normal, and then once you are aware of the broader world community, you realize that what you lived through was not a normal life cycle. It's normal for us. I mean, for an example, I try and convince my sons, as my dad convinced me, that if you want to make it in America, you got to be twice as good as your white counterpart, because they will look at you and judge you before they test you. Folk will see you and then determine what you can do, as opposed to testing you or talking to you and understanding what your skill and education value is. And so consequently, that's a problem. Those are the things that I need to remind my children of, and the kids that John brings to me, because of the fact that even though we do have a group that has grown, we do have a generation that is now being more inclusive, we still have deep-seated racism in America.